back to another episode of the Grandstand here on the Ohio Patriot Education Network YouTube channel. I'm, as always, your host, the Ohio Patriot, and for today's episode, we're going to do a little bit of a history lesson, specifically lesson on the 1968 Democrat National Convention and the so-called protests that happened during it, and will those same things for 2024? Only time will tell. We got about a month or so before the 2024 DNC, so, it depends. It might happen in another, 6 weeks or so, because there's a bunch of leftist groups all, getting permits to basically protest this year's DNC is what it is there. So, yeah, we'll see if things pop off there or not again. But, we're going to go through the 7 days of so-called protests that happened there in 1968, and basically, I'm actually a little surprised, truthfully, that was not an insurrection being declared in that whole thing, because of the fact you had National Guard out there and everything like that. So I was looking outside a couple minutes ago. Here's what it was, because I thought I heard it raining out pretty badly, and yeah, sure enough, looked out the back door, and it was pouring down enough at the time where I probably could have just walked outside and with some soap and stuff like that, and just lathered up real quick, and got a little downpour and stuff, enough to probably take like a really shitty earth shower is what I would call it at that point. With that being said, there should be enough water in the well now for me to actually take a pretty good shower in the morning then, so we'll do that for sure then. But anyway, that being said, time to discuss the actual Democrat National Convention protest of 68 here, which is something we talked about a little bit earlier tonight is what it was during the Buckshot Thursday episode, but I'll reiterate it now as what it is here. So basically, for those who don't know, because this is before I was born, about almost 20 years before I was born, actually, since I wasn't born until 85 is what it is there. You had a 1968 Democrat National Convention protests were a series of protests against the United States' involvement in the Vietnam War that took place to and during the 68 DNC convention, took place prior to and during the 68 convention. In Chicago, Illinois, protests lasted approximately 7 days from August 23rd to August 29th, 1968. It says many left-wing counterculture and anti-Vietnam War groups, as well as supporters of the anti-war Democrat candidate Eugene McCarthy, began planning protests, marches, and demonstrations in response to the convention and the impending presidential nomination of Democrat Vice President nominee Hubert Humphrey. Said there were several attempts by local Chicago authorities to prevent protests from occurring. However, they were unsuccessful. Thus, the city promised law and order in order to suppress the protesters / rioters, is what they actually were. So as a result, many rioters, reporters, and bystanders, I'm just going to call it what it is because I'm not going to go with the leftist fucking mantra that was written here is what it is. Because let's be honest with themselves, dude. There's a huge difference between a peaceful protest and an actual violent riot. And when you're trying to fucking fight the cops, dude, which is what these assholes are trying to do in 68, yeah, you're a fucking violent rioter, dude. Go fuck yourself. I'm going to tell you what you fucking are at that point. So, anyway. It's the same thing we saw here in New York literally last night. Or, sorry, not last night. Earlier tonight is what it was. When you had a bunch of leftist terrorists out there literally trying to fucking fight the cops, and they were apparently like headlocking some fucking trainee who was trying to fight resisting arrest and stuff like that, and like doing all kinds of other bullshit is what was out there. I guess you've also in the last couple hours too, there in New York City area, had a vehicle plow into some people. So I'm not sure if that was an actual terrorist attack happening now, or if it's left on itself, or if it was some right-winger attacking the left, or if it was some leftist attacking another leftist. Who the hell knows, dude? Probably a leftist attacking another leftist, I guess, honestly. But only time will tell on that one. So anyway, back to history lesson of 1968 here is what it was. It said, yes, as a result, many rioters, reporters, and bystanders were met with unprecedented levels of, quote, police brutality and police violence by Chicago Police Department, particularly in Grant Park and Michigan Avenue in Chicago during the conventions and actions by Chicago cops. The Illinois National Guard and other law enforcement agencies were later described by the National Commission on the Caucus and Prevention of Violence as a, quote, police riot. Yeah, because of course those fuckers are going to say that shit due to some leftist ass group is what it was there. So anyways, it's during the Evening of August 28, 68, the police riot occurring on Michigan Avenue in front of the Democrat Party's convention headquarters. The Conrad Hilton Hotel television networks broadcast live as the anti-war protesters began the now iconic chant, "The whole world is watching." It's the planning. It said National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam. It said in the fall of 67, members of the National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, often referred to as the MOBE, which was directed by David Dillinger, promised a massive anti-war demonstration to coincide with the 68 Democrat National Convention. So in early 68, the National Mobilization Committee opened a Chicago office directed by Ronnie Davis and Tom Hayden. That was the guy that started the whole thing, by the way, was this David dude. So we're leading political organizers at the time and former leaders of the Students for the Democratic Society. So literally communists is what these people fucking were, dude. Yeah, they were literally 1960s commies, dude, for real. Like, fuck these fucking guys, man. Y'all were the rioters, dude. You were the fucking terrorists in the 60s. You're the terrorists today, leftists. Like, seriously, people. Fucking hell, man. Anyway, the MOBE was an umbrella organization that included groups that were opposed to American participation in the Vietnam War. MOBE was run by a small executive board that set up a general framework for mass demonstrations. Sounds a lot like Antifa, by the way. Makes sense considering that these fuckers that were, you know, in their 20s and 30s back in the 60s, they're now in their fucking 70s and 80s today and stuff like that, tend to be the assholes in glasses and ball caps, sunglasses and baseball caps, that will literally be given directions to the current Antifa pieces of shit in our society to go do a bunch of direct action terrorism with this there, dude. So, yeah. Very interesting how that works, isn't it? Almost 60 years later. So, anyway. But, where are we at now? Yeah, it's a general framework for mass demonstrations, sent out invitations to over 500 groups, and its mailing list and coordinated activities between the groups. See, I'm thinking, honestly, if they had technology that we have now back then, it would just be straight up, like, you know, various social media and stuff like that. Like, you'd have BLM terrorist organizations doing that shit, or Antifa, etc., doing it there. That's actually what this kind of reminds me of. It reminds me of a mix between Antifa and BLM both, actually. So, anyways, this MOBE recognized and supported all tactics from marching to civil disobedience. See, that's the problem right there, right? And the thing is, here's the thing about America, dude, as a country, you know, on this last little bit of Independence Day here. You have every legal right under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution to peacefully protest. You have every right to have a redressal of grievances against your government. You know, like write a fucking list, you know, call them out, you know, demonstrate like that's what it is, dude. What you don't have a legal right to do is literally riot in the streets and commit terrorist acts and stuff like that, which is exactly what these fuckers are doing, like I said, back in 68, and most likely what they're going to do here in 2024 is my guess. So, that's the problem, dude, and that's where we come to blows, is what it is. Anyway, so MOBE's main aim was to get the largest turnouts in all functions. So David Dillinger, MOBE chairman, believed that the tendency to intensify militancy without organizing wide political support was self-defeating, but so was the tendency to draw away from militancy into milder and more conventional forms of protest. Yeah, that just sounds like a whole lot of fucking double-speak communist bullshit, honestly, right there, dude. That's what it sounds like to me, honestly. Anywho. Continuing on, though, it's over Chicago. That group originally planned for 2 large-scale marches and an end of convention rally at Soldier Field. So the goal was originally a massive show of force outside the International amphitheater. Since MOBE also planned to have workshops and movement centers distributed into 10 parks throughout the city, many in predominantly black areas, to allow demonstrators and participating groups to follow their particular focuses. Okay, so see, that actually kind of makes sense, right? So, like, and this is the difference, by the way, between back then and now, is at least these people had, like, a plan set up and were like, okay, you got, like let's go and say it, like, from 2024 terms, right? You would have, like, a Black Lives Matter chapter over there. You have, like, Antifa over here. You'd have, a whole other group over there that's, like, pro-Palestine or whatever the case be, and then, like, so forth and so on for the other seven is what it is there. And it would be, various people wanting to protest for various things. In this case, it would be, in 68 there, it would have been, like, you would have one group that would be, against the Vietnam War. And then you'd have another group that would be, hey, we just don't like this person, or whatever the case be. And you'd have a bunch of other people being, like, trying to push their communist agenda. Shit over here is what it is, then, et cetera, et cetera. So, in that case, I sort of understand what they're doing, honestly, Like, it makes sense, because you don't want to have, like, the guy that's all, some jackass over here trying to be all communist dipshit or whatever the case be, trying to fuck with people who are all anti-war is what it is then. And vice versa. So, they were trying to literally separate the groups into, like, their own, like, sanctioned areas, more or less, to, like, disrupt it from different positions and stuff like that. It's almost like the whole death by 1,000 cuts thing, if you will. So it actually makes sense on that aspect of things, right? So, anyway. Continuing on, we've got Youth International Party. So the Youth International Party was one of the major groups in the organization of protests, said Abby Hoffman. I actually remember that name quite a bit. Jerry Rubin and a few friends engaged in conversation at Hoffman's apartment on New Year's Eve, 1967. They discussed the events of the year, such as the Summer of Love and the Pentagon demonstration. The idea of having a free music festival in Chicago was suggested to diffuse political tension. And see, that's another thing too, by the way. Like, there you go, dude. Like, free music festival. Hey, everybody, like, let's come listen to music and all, be peaceful and fucking, peace signs everywhere and all that shit like that's what it is. Like, that's fucking awesome, dude. Like, that could have worked out perfectly. Unfortunately, it seems like it didn't, because this whole thing led to, like, a week of riots, basically. That's what it was, dude. So, again, like, in theory, it was great, but when it's all implemented together, it just went to shit in the handbasket, basically. What the hell in the handbasket, if you will, there. Like, it just became a giant shit show, more or less, is what it is there. So anyway, continuing on with this note, so over the next week, the Youth International Party took shape. Its members, known as Yuppies, politicized hippie ideology and used street theater and other tactics to critique the culture of the United States and induce change. So in preparation of the Chicago Convention, the Yuppies held the Yip In and the Yip Out at Grand Central Station in New York City. Both events were planned simultaneously as Be-Ins. Fuck. Okay. So it's basically just like being there, essentially, with live music. So the event was used to promote peace, love, and harmony. And as they traveled for Chicago, the black banner of the Antichrist group was hung on the wall, bearing the words "Up against the wall, motherfucker" in red. Yeah, that's fucking genius right there, isn't it, bro? Mm-hmm. Sure, you fucking anti-American, anti-Christian pieces of shit. So, anyway, it says, police stood by watching the crowds. As the Yep-In progressed, relations between the cops and Yuppies became strained. So two people climbed a large clock and removed the hands. The police responded by clearing the station. They formed a skirmish line, ordered the people to disrupt, and then started forcing their way through the crowd, as we would, obviously. So Yep Out was similar in purpose, but held in Central Park. So obtained the permits and aid from New York City officials necessary for the event. Yuppies performed a sit-in at the mayor's office until the mayor would negotiate on permits. I feel like, honestly, What was that one guy's name now I'm thinking about it? I think it was John Lewis, who was an ex-congressman. He's one of the guys that died here in the last, 5 to 10 years or so. He was one of those assholes that pulled that shit, by the way, back in those days. Not that specific one, but he was, during the MLK marches and stuff like that, he would just sit there like an asshole, basically is what it is. And then I think he was actually one of the ones that was trying to fight the cops at the end of the day, dude, when they were, trying to remove him by force is what it is there. So, yeah, John Lewis was not a good guy. He was a fucking piece of garbage in general, dude. He was a fucking scumbag who, by the way, also showed what a weak fucking old pussy he was before his death there in Congress when him and other fucking Democrats literally did a fucking sit on the damn floor of the fucking congressional chambers, dude. It really just showed what a bunch of fucking crybaby assholes people were, dude. Yeah, it was June 2016. What a fucking joke, dude. Yeah, and what were they doing that sit-in on, by the way, back in 2016 there? Oh, yeah, that's right. It was a bunch of fucking asshole piece of shit Democrats trying to push their anti-gunner horse shit again, dude. Literally sitting on gun control, dude. Fuck all y'all, man. I'm going to see if I can. Yeah, this is that old piece of shit John Lewis right here, dude. By the way, this fucking douchebag had the audacity, knowing he was going to die in fucking office, to not just resign on the spot and let a younger, healthier person take over for his fucking piece of shit ass there in Georgia. That's the problem with Congress right now, is old fuckers like this and old fuckers around him like that, all sitting in office for decades until they fucking die in power, dude. Get the fuck out and let younger people take over, assholes, or be forced the fuck out pretty soon when we just take your asses and throw you the fuck out of office at this point with term limits and shit like that. Fucking cunts. I seriously hate those fucking people, dude, so much. I seriously hate the fucking Democrat Party so much anymore, dude. And it's because of not only shit like this in the 60s, but also shit like that in the 2010s. And then also shit like they're doing right now in the 2020s here with all fucking pro-Palestine terrorism in this country and shit. Burning American flags and everything else like that is what it is, bro. So, anyway. But yeah, going back to the yep in, yep out thing is what it is there. So to get their permits there in Central Park, they had to basically do a sit in the mayor's office before you negotiate permits there. So in the end, an agreement was made by staging electricity, police presence, bathrooms, and other necessities for running a music festival. It said police milled in the crowd, giving considerable leeway to the proceedings, which led to a peaceable day. Said the yippies took a radical approach to the Democrat National Convention. They wrote articles, published flyers, made speeches, and held rallies and demonstrations to announce that they were coming to Chicago. Threats were made that nails would be thrown from overpasses to block roads. Cars would be used to block intersections, main streets, police stations, and National Guard armories. Said LSD would be dumped in the city's water supply and the convention would be stormed. However, none of those threats came to fruition. So basically, it was just them threatening to do that shit is what it was. Ironically enough, going back to the blocking intersections and stuff like that, now it's what their fucking, current iteration of these idiots are doing nowadays is what it is there, dude. By the way, how is this not terrorism when you're talking about possibly throwing LSD into a city's water supply? Jesus Christ, dude. Or, storming the fucking convention. Dude, that is terrorism before terrorism was really a known thing in this country. You did that shit nowadays, dude, your ass is going to get arrested for terroristic threats and stuff like that. For real. And you're going to probably get a black bag over your head and never be seen again is what it is from the National Defense Authorization Act stuff. So, anyways, it's nonetheless city officials in Chicago prepared for all possible threats. Said a vilification campaign led by Chicago authorities worked in favor of Yuppie's plan. So one of the Yuppies' main tactics was to use street theater to create an experience that drew the attention of mainstream America. Says Yuppie activities were used to put across the message that the average American didn't have control over the political process, which kind of was true back then, still is true today, by the way. But then again, we're also not a direct democracy. We're a constitutional republic is what it is, people. The Democrat voting process. So there you go. anyway, actually, I guess it'd be technically democratically elected representatives would be there for the whole thing. If you want to get it technical, I mean, now we can basically call ourselves a dictatorial oligarchy right now, because that's what they're trying to do right now is make a small group of people into a dictatorship, basically what it is there. So, anyway, but let's see where it's at now. Yeah, they tried to storm. Okay, wait. Yeah, talking about Americans didn't have control over a political process, so they tried to show this by purposefully participating in non-traditional activities that would not conceivably affect the decision-making process of the convention hall, unlike a straight protest with picket lines, marches, and rallies, which could conceivably convince delegates of mass support for a program. So on Wednesday night, networks moved their coverage away from the amphitheater where the delegates were voting on a nomination to a pitched battle in front of the Conrad Hilton Hotel. And then we get prelude here. Said official responses, and they build up to the convention. Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley, who was this Democrat guy right here is what it is. Which, by the way, Democrats have had control of Chicago for like 100 fucking years now, people. And they fucked it up year after year, decade after decade. Like, stop voting these morons into power, man. Seriously. But anyway, so Richard Daley repeatedly denounced the various anti-Vietnam War protest groups mobilizing for protests and announced law and order will be maintained. Said Chicago security forces prepared for the protest during the convention. So besides the standard gun and billy clubs, which was like that back in the day in the 60s. By the way, that was when they would beat your ass with fucking billy clubs back in those days, dude. They always used the water cannons on your ass back then, which we don't do nowadays. Which we do a lot, actually. So Chicago Police Department officers also had mace and riot helmets, which is obviously OC now, and then it would be your old school 60s riot helmet there, which now they'd be in like full tack gear now is what it is, dude, with like, you know, pepper ball guns and everything else like that's what it is now. So, anyway, and possibly real ammunition for that matter, too. Anyway, so for the convention, the Chicago Police Department borrowed a new portable communication system from the military, thus increasing communication between field officers and command posts. Says all summer long, police officers had received refresher training on crowd control and riot techniques during the convention itself. Police Academy instructors were with these reserve forces, giving last-minute reminders to them. Says Mayor Daley, citing intelligence reports of potential violence, put the 12,000 members of the Chicago Police Department on a 12-hour shifts at the time. Says while U.S. Army placed 6,000 troops in positions to protect the city during the convention, and nearly 6,000 members of the National Guard were sent to the city. That's a lot of fucking National Guard, by the way. So there's an additional 5,000 Guard in alert, bolstered up by up to 1,000 FBI and military intelligence officers and 1,000 Secret Service agents. Dude, that's that's a shitload of people. So you had, let's figure this out then. So you had 12,000 cops from the Chicago Police Department. You had 6,000 military from National Guard in the city. You had another 5,000 on standby, basically. So that's 11,000 National Guard, plus 12,000 cops, plus 1,000 FBI and military intelligence, so like CIA guys, is what it is there. And then another 1,000 Secret Service. Like, Jesus, dude. You're talking about, like, was that like 20,000 something police/military is what it is there? Like, damn, dude. Anyway, so to satisfy manpower requirements, the city put the force on 12-hour shifts instead of the normal 8-hour shifts. Said this gave police commanders approximately 50% more field officers to deal with disturbances. 2/3 of the officers will continue with the normal police duties, and the remaining third available for special assignment. So in the amphitheater, the city coordinated 500 officers filling various roles. In Lincoln Park, the number of officers patrolling during the daytime was doubled, but the majority of officers assigned to Lincoln Park area were held in reserve, ready to respond to any disturbance that happened. So the suspected trouble areas, police patrols were heavy, further away from the central patrols. Were less frequent, So this allowed police to shift easily and quickly to control a problem without leaving an area unguarded. It said, meanwhile, a public image of total enforcement of all city, state, and federal laws, the Narcotics Division was quietly reassigned to regular field work, curtailing anti-drug operations during the DNC. So basically, they stopped doing like drug searches and stuff like that to go join the cops and what was there. Interesting. Since police officers in Mayor Daley had worked with National Guard to create a plan to effectively use the Guard, it would be called up at the beginning of the convention, but held in reserve at strategically placed armories or collection points, such as Soldier Field, with the Guard in place at their armories. The Chicago Police Department could request and receive assistance quickly from them. And we got permits. It said both the MOBE and YEPI needed permits from the city in order to hold their respective events. The city had several reasons for denying permits to them and thus stalled issuing permits to them. So the city was worried about a black rebellion independent of the white protesters during the convention. So as to avoid trouble, the city used its influence with black community organizations such as the Woodlawn Organization, the Black Consortium, and Operation Breadbasket. What the hell was that? Organization dedicated to improving economic conditions of black communities across the United States. Operation Breadbasket was launched February 11, 1966, under the leadership of Jesse Jackson. God damn, bro. That dude fucking fleeced all y'all, bro, with that one. Seriously. Oh, Jesus. Jesus Christ, man. That is too funny. So, anyway. Says to keep their constituents calm and peaceful. So some of the militant black leaders were encouraged to leave town during the convention to avoid being implicated in the violence that may have happened. Yeah, that's probably a pretty smart idea on their part, dude. Be like, hey, man, maybe we should get the fuck out of here for the time being for the next week and a half or so. Which at that time would have probably been like your Black Panthers and stuff like that, would be my guess. Back in those days, again, the prelude to BLM is what it is now. So, anyway. Let's see what we got now. Oops. Too far in there. Okay, so it's right here. The city also believed that having large numbers of white protesters marching through the black ghettos with a heavy police or National Guard escort would inflame the ghettos and set off rioting there. Yeah, so that really shows like the racial division at the time in the 60s, by the way. If you're going to have like a bunch of white people go through there, like your, like I said, like your original Antifa and stuff like that, getting like a police escort or like a National Guard escort, you got a bunch of black people being like, what the fuck? Like, it really does show how stupid people are. That's what it is on that one there. Anyway, so therefore, city categorically denied any permit that included parks in or march routes through black areas. So another argument the city used to deny permits was that the permits asked the city to set aside local and state ordinances. A city ordinance closed the parks at 11 p.m. Although this was not strictly enforced, in a letter to YEPI, Deputy Mayor David Stahl gave 8 rules for YEPI to follow, including submitting detailed plans and requirements following all city, state, and federal ordinances, and toning down their rhetoric. So the Yuppies refused, so the city felt justified in denying their permits. So in a last-ditch effort, MOBE filed a lawsuit in federal court seeking to force Chicago to issue permits for a rally in Soldier Field or Grant Park. So Judge Lynch, Daley's former law partner, heard the case and similarly dismissed the request, citing the city could deny permits on the basis of protecting public comfort, convenience, and welfare. I could see that, honestly. Because, yeah, you're like, hey, we think your people are going to riot in this fucking place, so no, we're not going to give you permits. Go fuck yourself. Anyway. And then we got protests. August 22nd, shooting of Dean Johnson. It's at the start of the convention week. Violence is sometimes traced to the shooting of Dean Johnson by Chicago police officers. Dean Johnson, age 17 at the time, and another boy were stopped on a sidewalk by the police for a curfew violation early on the morning of Thursday, August 22nd. When Johnson drew and fired a pistol at police, the gun misfired. Police officers returned fire, hitting Johnson 3 times. So literally this guy tried to fire first on the cops, and people were all like, oh no, but it was the cops who were the fucking at fault there. It's like, no. Like, this is some BLM shit, like 60 years ago, dude, for real. Anyway. So the Yuppies and SDS hastily organized a memorial service for Johnson, but as one observer noted, due to poor planning, it turned out that no one had made any plans to actually do anything. We just milled around and began to fill up the intersection. So 2 squad cars pulled up, and the cops got out and told us to keep moving, but they were pretty gentle about it. That's funny. It's like, yeah, just get the fuck out of here, man. And they're like, okay. So, anyway, we got August 23rd planned protests at Friday, August 23rd. Jerry Rubin and other Yuppies attempted to formally nominate the Yuppie candidate for president. Pegasus, a pig. So they were literally putting a pig up for president. Jesus Christ, dude. What a joke. Again, this is kind of like basically this whole group reminds me of like the Libertarian Party now. The candidates put up there is what it is, dude. Anyways, by the time Rubin arrived with Pegasus, several hundred spectators and reporters had gathered on the Civic Center Plaza. Police officers were waiting. And after the pig was released, Rubin, folk singer Phil Otts, I guess I pronounced that guy's name right, and 5 other Yuppies were arrested from there. Then we got August 24th marches. 6 a.m. on Saturday, August 24th, continuous surveillance began in Lincoln Park. For the previous several nights, the police had cleared Lincoln Park at 11 p.m. and maintained a significant presence during the day. So a women's strike for peace, which would be your old school ass, like second/third-wave feminists back in the day in the 60s there. So attempted to hold a women-only picket at the Hilton Hotel, the main delegate hotel. So despite plans for buses from around the country to bring hundreds of picketers, only 60 or so women showed up. That's funny. That makes me laugh, dude, for real. So it was generally agreed upon that to not attempt to stay at Lincoln Park after the curfew, but to rather take the protests to the streets at approximately 11 p.m. Poet Allen Ginsberg. That dude right there. That guy looks like a creeper, by the way. Says led protesters out of the park into the streets, said SDS leaders organized several hundred protesters to march through the streets, chanting things like such as "Peace Now," while the police simply guarded Lincoln Park. So when the crowd stopped at Wells and North Avenue, blocking the intersection, a police contingent arrived to clear the crowd. Said 11 people were arrested and several police cars were stoned before the crowd dispersed into normal Saturday nightlife. So basically, they threw a bunch of rocks at cars. What it is there. Then we got August 25th, protests and music. So on Sunday, MOBE had scheduled a Meet the Delegates march and picket. At 2 p.m., there was between 200 and 300 picketers marching across the street from the Conrad Hilton, and another 500 marching south through the Loop, chanting, "Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today?" That's actually a pretty good chant, by the way. I'm not going to lie. I like it. So after the police arrived, those who were picketing moved into nearby Grant Park to avoid a mass arrest situation. And by the way, the reason that they were saying that chant about LBJ and kids today is what it was because he was literally sending over our sons back in those days, 18, 19-year-old guys is what it was, maybe even 17 for that matter, to their deaths in the Vietnam War. So, yeah, that's pretty much what they meant on that one, dude. And I think that was more like the anti-Vietnam people was what it was there, dude. Rightfully so. Because Vietnam was a shit show. We all know that nowadays, dude, is what it is. So, anyway. Let's see where we're at now. Yeah, so they moved to a different place to avoid mass arrests. And once the marchers had reached Grant Park, there was a brief rally where Davis and Hayden claimed the day a success, and then went to Lincoln Park, where the Festival of Life Music Festival was beginning. At 4 p.m., the festival started with proto-punk band MC5. So the only band who showed up for the festival. That was pretty pathetic. So we only had one band for that entire festival. So police did not allow a flatbed truck to be brought in as a stage, fearing yuppies would use it to incite the crowd. Said when the concession stand owner insisted that yuppies stop using his electrical outlets to run the amplifier equipment, confusion ensued. That's funny. So literally some convention stand guy was like, hey, stop using my electricity, fuckers. That's funny. So when Ruben and other yuppies tried to make frantic deals to get the sound back on, Hoffman used the confusion to try to bring in a flatbed truck. A deal was struck allowing the truck to be parked nearby, but not in the park. So the crowd that had gathered around and on the truck did not realize an agreement had been reached, and thought the truck was being sent away. So the crowd surged around the truck, pinning in the police officers. Okay, so basically it was just people being stupid and not realizing basically it's the left hand not realizing what the right hand's doing kind of thing is what it is there. So yeah, just a bunch of idiots is what it is, because you got like too many chiefs and not enough Indians kind of thing is what it is in that situation there. Anyways, Hoffman declared that the police had stopped the music festival and proceeded to conduct a workshop on dispersal tactics to avoid arrest by police. As the next police shift came on duty, they were informed of the tense situation in the park due to the number, frequency, divisiveness, and exposure of the threats made by the protesters. The police were concerned about facing rioters armed with unknown weapons and unknown intentions, as they should be. So at 9 p.m. that night, police formed a skirmish line around the park bathrooms. So they drew a crowd of spectators who heckled the cops. So the crowd rapidly grew until the police charged into the crowd, swinging their batons, scattering the crowd. At 11 p.m., the police pushed the rioters out of the park. So most rioters left the park and congregated nearby, taunting the police. So initially, when the police reached the edge of the park, they maintained their skirmish line. However, when a squad was ordered to clear Clark Street to keep traffic flowing, the police lost control. So they running. Battle began. Yuppie Jerry Rubin told a friend, quote, "This is fantastic, and it's only Sunday night. They might declare martial law in this town." They probably should have, actually. And they probably should have thrown an insurrection act at that point, honestly. It says, so-called protesters, journalists, photographers, and bystanders were clubbed and beaten by cops. Order was not restored in Old Town until Monday morning. And we got August 26th, Grant Park. So Monday, August 26th, demonstrators climbed on the General John Logan Memorial statue, leading to violent skirmishes with police in Grant Park. Police hurled a young man down and arrested him, breaking his arm in the process. Then we got August 28th, the Battle for Michigan Avenue. So so-called protesters were joined on August 28th by the Poor People's Campaign. Oh my God! It's the fucking people who are not coming back here in 2024. Okay, so you got hold on a second. I gotta get that up now, dude. So we have the Poor People's Campaign right there, and I know I talked about this last night. One of the groups that's supposed to be at this whole thing was supposed to be. Something with poor people's thinking is what it is there. Let me find it real fast. Okay. So that was the Poor People's Campaign. And these are the 8 groups that are supposed to be protesting right now. Yeah, Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. I think that might be the same fucking people almost 60 years later, dude. Like the same group is what it is. Just a different name now is what it is for them. How would that be the case, man? Oh, man. 2024 DNC is about to get lit, motherfuckers, for real. So, anyway. Yeah, so August 28th. They were joined by Poor People's Campaign, now led by the Southern Christian Leadership Conferences, Ralph Abernathy, So this group had a permit and was split off from other demonstrators before being allowed to proceed to the amphitheater. It's a Battle for Michigan Avenue described by Neil Sternberg of the Chicago Sun-Times as a, quote, 17-minute melee in front of the Conrad Hotel. So it was broadcast on television along with footage from before the convention. The police violence extended to so-called protesters, bystanders, reporters, and photographers, while tear gas reached Hubert Humphrey in his hotel suite. That's pretty sad, man. Says police pushed the people through plate glass windows, then pursued them inside and beat them as they sprawled onto the broken glass. Said 100 so-called protesters and 119 cops were treated for injuries, and 600 so-called protesters were arrested. Says television cameras recorded the police brutality while demonstrators chanted, "The whole world is watching." Says at the convention, several delegates made statements against Mayor Daley and the Chicago Police Department, like Senator Abraham Ribicoff, who, speaking from the podium, denounced the use of Gestapo tactics on the streets of Chicago in his speech nominating George McGovern, who was a big-ass fucking... What's funny to me, by the way, on that one is, so you have this fucking idiot right here nominating this fucking idiot right here. For those who know about George McGovern, dude, pretty sure George McGovern, if my memory serves me correct, was a fucking literal Nazi Dixiecrat. Like, Jesus Christ, people. Fucking hell, man. Anyway. It says hard line taken by the city was also seen on the convention floor itself in 1968. Terry Southern, who was this deer here. Let's see what it has those. Novelist, etc., screenwriter. Described the convention hall as exactly like approaching a military installation, barbed wire, checkpoints, the whole bit. So inside the convention, journalists like Mike Wallace and Dan Rather were roughed up by security, as they should be, because fuck the mainstream media. Since both these events were broadcast live on television, I actually kind of want to go find that footage of Mike Wallace and Dan Rather getting their asses kicked by security, dude. Anyway, it says Hubert Humphrey won the presidential nominee that night. This is August 29th. Ain't marching no more, says Paul Cowan of the Village Voice reports that after the speech by Eugene McCarthy in Grant Park that afternoon, a march was joined by delegates and McCarthy supporters, but was stopped at 18th Street, Michigan Avenue by National Guard. So the rest were followed by tear gas and mace, while marchers chanted, "The whole world is watching," and retreated to Grant Park. In the park, demonstrators sang, "God bless America, this land is my land," and the Star Spangled Banner. So see, that's the thing, right? Even back then though, dude, like, even if they were like rioters and sort of terrorists back then, at least they had like America songs as their fucking songs, bro. Like, it wasn't some fucking dumbass retarded bullshit like anti-American crap now. So anyway, so they waved V symbols above their heads, asking soldiers to join in. Soldiers never did, apparently. This is Phil Orr's song, "I Ain't Marching No Anymore," and demonstrators chanting, "Join us," softly. 5 hours later, police officers raided a party organized by McCarthy workers in the Hilton Hotel and beat them viciously. Yeah, that's not cool, bro. That's just fucked up, honestly, if that actually happened as described there. Says, according to McCarthy workers, all telephones on the floor had been disconnected a half hour before, and they had no way to call for help. Well, of course, man. That is some Gestapo shit right there, dude, because if they wanted to beat your ass, like, of course they're not going to allow you to have fucking, phone work and stuff like that. And that would, honestly, the modern-day equivalent of that would be they would just have a, I forget what those things are called now. It's like Stingray or something is what they're called there, where it's literally like a mobile device thing outside. It's like a little, it looks like a weird, like, man thing is what it is there. But it has the ability to, like, knock out all cell phone communication within, like, X amount of radius is what it is there. And that's probably what they do. They probably just pull those out there and just flip the fucking switch on is what it would be then to, like, knock out all cell phone towers and stuff within, like, a 5-mile radius or something then. So. And then we got investigations, which, a bunch of stuff. There's what it is. And then we got aftermath, public response to it. Then we got Chicago 7 trial, March 29th. On March 20th, 1969, several months after the convention and after a new, more conservative president, Richard Nixon, was in office, a federal jury announced the indictments of 8 demonstrators, being Rodney Davis, David Dillinger, John Fonis, Tom Hayden, Abby Hoffman. That's where I know Abby Hoffman's name from, by the way. Jerry Rubin and Lee Weiner, plus Bobby Seale, who was tried separately, and 8 police officers. So the jury delivered a verdict on February 18th of 1970. Over 100 witnesses were called by the defense, including singers Phil Orks, Judy Collins, Artlo Guthrie, and Country Joe McDonald, comedian Dick Gregory, writers Norman Mailer, Allen Ginsberg, and activist Timothy Leary, and Jesse Jackson. Jesus Christ. Dude, Jesse Jackson is the biggest. Like, him and Al Sharpton are 2 of the biggest grifters from the 60s/70s era, dude. Ain't even funny, bro. So, but yeah. I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Chicago 7 guys did get busted for a bunch of stuff. There's what it was, and then they end up getting let out here some years back. Now is what it is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that is the case. Let me go look at that right now, actually. Chicago 7, originally the Chicago 8, also known as the Conspiracy 8, the Conspiracy 7. The 7 defendants charged the United States Justice Department with conspiracy, crossing state lines, and intent to incite a riot. Other charges related to anti-Vietnam War, the 60s counterculture protests in Chicago, Illinois during the 68 convention. So Chicago 8 became the Chicago 7 after the case against co-defendant Bobby Seale was declared a mistrial. Okay. So, let's see. All the defendants were charged with and acquitted of conspiracy. Okay, that's what it was. Davis, Dillinger, Hayden, Hoffman, and Rubin were charged with and convicted of crossing state lines with intent to incite a riot. Okay, so they didn't get a conspiracy charges what it was, but they did get 5 of them with trying to incite riots. Is what it is there. The other 2 guys were charged with teaching demonstrators how to construct incendiary devices, and acquitted of those charges. So essentially, they were talking about them trying to make Molotov cocktails, basically. I think is what it was back in those days. And they're like, no, they didn't do that shit, is what it is. Says all convictions were later reversed on appeal, and the government declined to retry the cases. Says, well, the jury deliberated. Judge Julius Hoffman convicted the defendants on their attorneys of contempt of court and sentenced them to jail sentences ranging from less than 3 months to more than 4 years. So the contempt convictions were also appealed, and some were retried before a different judge. So since the beginning of the trial in 1969, the defendants and their attorneys had been depicted in a variety of art forms, including film, music, and theater. Interesting. So yeah, that's where I know like Abby Hoffman and those guys from. Then they were convicted on trying to incite riots. Is what it was there at the 68 convention, which as they should be because they were trying to do that stuff, dude. So. Yeah, I would not be surprised if there was something similar to happen this year, honestly, dude, or even worse for that matter. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if the 2024 DNC was like an actual terrorist attack outside that fucking place, honestly, dude. Considering you're going to have both, pro-Palestine/Islam motherfuckers out there, and you're also going to have another group that's basically like pro-Israel. So it's like, yeah, if something doesn't kick off, I'd be shocked, honestly, on that one, dude. But, anyway, very interesting history lesson for sure on that one. So, and yeah, I definitely see some crazy shit happening here. 2024 DNC on August 19th. That is what it'll be. So, yeah, man, 2024 is about to be lit as fuck, is what it is. So, enjoy the wild ride, y'all. So, anyway. But it's officially July 5th now, and I'm getting tired. I'm about to like fall asleep right now. Is what it is. So I'm gonna call it a night on this one. I'm probably gonna go watch the Who Killed WCW documentary. The latest episode of that one is what it is. Before I fall asleep, or maybe just fall asleep. So that's what it'll be then. So, by the way, it seems like it's pretty much everybody involved in that fucking place that killed WCW at the end of the day. So. Yeah, there is that. It was mostly though Bischoff and Vince Russo that actually destroyed the place. They were like the final death nails in the coffin of that place. That's what it is. Along with Kevin Nash being given booking power, and then of course, that stupid ass contract where anybody else getting paid bumped, he just gets paid bumped even higher than them. That's what it is then. So, yeah, it was a giant fucking mess. Is what it is at that place, man. But anyway, it is what it is, and history shows that's why you don't fucking give dumbass wrestlers a bunch of dumbass power like that. Is what it is. So that was really on Ted Turner on that one. But anyway, have a good one, y'all. Stay safe, stay vigilant, all that good stuff. And like I've always been telling you, always be caring because you never know when you're going to need it and have to use it. So, peace out, y'all. Later.